Okay, so here we have a scenario where we have 4 points that have been given to us, A, B, C, and D, 4 coordinates, and says given them, we're supposed to try, we're just going to start with finding the slopes of these 4 line segments, A, B, C, C, D, and AD. So I'm going to start with AB, so there's my A, there's my B. So I'm going to find the slope of AB, and of course, this is x1, y1, x2, y2, and we're going to find the slope of those lines. So for those two, it would be 9 minus 1 divided by negative 13, take away negative 9. That would give me 8 divided by, so negative 13, so it becomes a plus. Negative 13 plus 9 would be negative 4. So that has a slope of negative 2. Okay, and I can do the same types of things for BC, CD, and AD. So find the slopes of those 4 lines. I'm going to pause this while you do this a little bit. And when we come back, I'll have those slopes laid out, and then we will work with them. All right, so we've got our 4 slopes. We've got negative 2, we've got 1/2, negative 2, and 1/2. And then number 2 says, what do you notice about the slopes? Well, you can see that there's sort of like 2 pairs of slopes. We have these 2 slopes which are equal to each other, and we have these 2 slopes that are equal to each other. Now, of course, if we have slopes that are equal to each other, this tells us that those lines are parallel to each other. But not only that, we can also see, if we look at the 1/2s and negative 2s, that they are inverses and negatives to each other, which means that they are perpendicular to each other. So we also have some perpendicular slopes as well. That's sign for perpendicular, a little 90 degrees. So we have parallel slopes and we've got perpendicular slopes. Okay, so now what we're supposed to do, we're supposed to plot the points and connect the dots. So we have a little coordinate system down here we're going to use, and we're going to plot those points. Okay, so we'll make this a little bit smaller so we can see everything. There we go. And we're supposed to plot those points. So we'll need a little coordinate system. So I'll lay out my coordinate system, and then we will look at what those points are when they're actually plotted. Okay, so I drew my little coordinate system here. Here's my origin over here. When I look at the points, I notice all of my x values are negative, so I know they're all going to the left, and all my y values are positive, so they're going to go up. So they're all going to be in what would be the top left-hand quadrant, or quadrant number 2 in your basic coordinate system. So I can put my origin over here. So I got my negative x values here, and my positive y values here. So I'm going to start by plotting point A, which is negative 9, 1. So negative 9 right over here, up 1. So there's point A. Next, I'm going to do B, which is negative 13, 9. So negative 13 would be all over here, and then 9 up, which would be right there. So there's B. And then I've got negative 5, 13 for C, so negative 5. And then I go all the way up to the top, so there is my C. And then I've got for D, negative 1 and 5, which would be right there. There is my D. Okay, so it says plot the points and connect the dots. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the dots on here. And I'll use blue. So I'm going to connect my dots together. So I'll connect A to B, and then I'm going to connect those two, and I can connect these two, something like this. There you go, something like that. All right. Okay, so now it's connected. So, and then it asks if it's a trapezoid, a rectangle, or parallelogram. Well, first of all, I know it's a trapezoid because trapezoids are shapes with 4 straight sides, and this has 4 straight sides. So, is it a rectangle or a parallelogram? Well, if this was going to be a parallelogram, it would have to have sides that are opposite to each other that are parallel to each other. So line AB would have to be parallel to CD. And if I check my slope of AB, the slope was negative 2. So here the slope was minus 2. If I check the slope of CD, that was also minus 2. Okay, so I know those are parallel to each other. Now I check the other one. So if I check line BC, the slope was 1/2. And if I check AD, the slope was also 1/2. So those two lines are also parallel to each other. Well, if BC is parallel to AD and AB is parallel to CD, then absolutely this is a parallelogram because all the opposite sides are parallel to each other. So is it also a rectangle? Well, a rectangle, all the angles on a rectangle need to be 90 degrees. Well, when I looked up here and I found my slopes, sure enough, all of these slopes were perpendicular to each other. They're all inverses and opposite signs of each other. So this -2, that is the inverse of it and made, opposite sign, perpendicular, and same thing as we go all the way around. So this shape would also be a rectangle because all the slopes are perpendicular to each other. So it's kind of a neat exercise in just using slopes and seeing how they connect to each other. If the slopes had not been perpendicular, it could still have been a parallelogram. And if none of the sides were parallel and you got nothing perpendicular, then it could just have been a trapezoid. But you got to look at the slopes, see if they match up, see if they're equal, see if they're perpendicular or not, and then you can find out what possible shape it could be.